Hey, it's Esther Goldstein, and I'm hopping on to talk today about emotional orphans and a couple of tips, a couple of questions to look at if you're wondering if you might have been emotionally neglected. And I have these four questions or these four symptoms to give you. Now, the point of acknowledging or identifying if you have been emotionally neglected or if you identify with being an emotional orphan, and just to define emotional orphan means that you actually had a caregiver, a parent, or parents who tended to you in some kind of way, but on an emotional level where you needed emotional support, um, that emotional attunement, love, care, responsiveness, that wasn't there. So that's the concept of emotional. Some people identify as emotional orphans. And the point of this is not about making you feel like a victim. Actually, the point is really helping you make sense of your symptoms, because what I've seen in my practice and in being a humble traveler of this thing called life is that when we best understand our symptoms, then we can take knowledgeable, grounded steps towards healing and making a shift. So when people reach out and they understand their symptoms, then we can actually work towards making a shift and really, reclaiming your life and your identity in a more grounded, healthy way, and really tending to those emotional wounds. So here are the four tips. So, four of the signs that may connect to the fact that you might, have been emotionally neglected is number one, that you feel this nagging feeling of constant doubt. So, if you walk around and you notice that you have interactions, or you say something, or you're at work, or you're in a relationship, or you're even like a parent or a caregiver, and you do something, but then there's almost this part of you that doubts, like, was that right? Was that wrong? You're kind of looking over your shoulder. So there's the part of you that doubts yourself a lot. The next one is that you have a parent or parents, but they don't really check in on you in the way that a parent naturally would. So mom might call, but if she calls, she's really calling to talk all about herself or to criticize you, or she's needing you as emotional support. Dad might call, or dad may hardly call, right? People might say that they have a dad that calls often, and you kind of start noticing that your dad doesn't reach out as much, or dad calls, but really more to use the relationship, not really to be a supportive figure. Okay, so it's almost like there is a parent, but like the parent is really not there for you in the parenting kind of way. Number three is that you sometimes have this fantasy and this wonder of what would it be like to be the apple of a parent's eye. You hear about stories in the news or people in your neighborhood or friends or communities, and people talk about, or you are exposed to family dynamics, and you find a part of you wondering, like, I wonder what that feeling would be like to be, the apple of my parent's eye. And so it speaks to the fact that you probably didn't have that experience of them being able to express their excitement or their joy for who you are as being their special child. And the last pointer is that you might find yourself emotionally numb at unexpected times. So what might happen is that you might have experiences where you notice that you're feeling emotionally like flatlined, or just starting to feel numb, disconnected from yourself or disconnected from your body. And this could be specific to times where you have like family of origin get togethers, or it could even just be something in your adult life, right? Your partner might lean in for, an intimate moment. Your child might want to connect with you. You might have an important work meeting, and then there's this feeling of pressure. You might be triggered unconsciously with something that you see or you feel or you remember, but you have these moments of just feeling emotionally numb. And so this might mean that your body is being flooded with some kind of memory or emotion that feels almost too much, and so something's being kicked up. So these are the four signs. If any of these, resonate with you, this feeling of doubt, having a parent who either doesn't check in on you or checks in, but really it's more about themselves when they reach out, wondering what it would feel like to be the apple of your parent or caregiver's eye, and number four, finding yourself emotionally numb at some times and kind of being confused by it. These might be some signs that you experienced childhood emotional neglect, and I'm going to be giving you some tips in the next video about what can you do to start healing the pains of the emotional neglect, because the reason it's so important to acknowledge emotional neglect is it's one of those wounds that I refer to as silent wounds. And silent wounds mean like, it's not like a broken, it's kind of like, it's not like you fell down and you have like a big bleed and a big scratch and everyone could see and you have to tend to it. It's more of like an internal wound. And so the world doesn't see it and you might not even see it. So it's just like, why are you in pain? But you have like an emotional pain and you have some of these symptoms that are really difficult to live life with, right? It takes away a feeling of calm or joy. So being able to tend to the internal work will allow you to start feeling more whole, more solid, and really start creating shifts and healing your internal patterns and creating a healthier life for your present and the people in your life. And if you have children, really like shifting the transgenerational patterns and norms. So if this is you, I'm sending a whole lot of care from my heart to yours, and stay posted for my next blog about some tips for you if you identify with being an emotional orphan.